They called it the tear in the sky where gods descended, a description etched in clay nearly 5 millennia before modern satellites detected the anomaly, a wound in Earth's magnetic shield spanning the South Atlantic Ocean. The tablet wasn't supposed to exist, not with those specific coordinates, not with measurements matching NASA's own data to within decimal points. Yet there it was, unearthed from beneath the scorched sands of ancient Ur, cuneiform symbols describing a phenomenon that modern science only discovered in the 1950s. When the translation team first calculated the numbers, they refused to believe what they saw. The ancient Sumerian astronomers had mapped with precision what we now call the South Atlantic Anomaly, a massive distortion in Earth's magnetic field where charged particles from the sun penetrate deeper than anywhere else on our planet. How could they have known about an invisible force? How could they have measured what cannot be seen with the naked eye? Unless the weakness in our planetary shield wasn't merely observed by the Sumerians. What if it was engineered by them? The discovery came during a routine excavation in southern Iraq, near what was once the glittering city-state of Ur. The region between the Tigris and Euphrates, the cradle of civilization, has yielded countless artifacts over centuries. But this find was different. Buried beneath layers of sediment dating back to the early dynastic period, approximately 2600 BCE, lay a chamber that shouldn't have been there. Inside, a collection of clay tablets unlike any others. While most Sumerian texts recorded mundane matters, grain transactions, royal proclamations, religious hymns, these contained intricate diagrams of the celestial sphere with mathematical notations that defied conventional understanding of ancient astronomy. The chamber walls themselves told a story. Elaborate reliefs depicted the Anunnaki, those beings who came down from heaven, manipulating what appeared to be a net or mesh surrounding a sphere. Historians had always interpreted such imagery as religious symbolism, yet the precision of the coordinates inscribed alongside them suggested something far more literal. The lead archaeologist described a peculiar sensation when first handling the tablets. The clay felt warm, he noted in his field journal. Not the warmth of the sun, but something internal, as though the artifact itself generated energy. When I traced the symbols with my finger, there was a vibration, subtle but unmistakable, like touching a living thing. Most unsettling was the central diagram. Earth, represented as a sphere, with a distinct darkened region precisely where the South Atlantic Anomaly exists today. Surrounding this mark were calculations, ratios and sequences that, when translated into modern mathematical notation, yielded values nearly identical to the radiation fluctuations NASA has recorded in that same region. The scientific community dismissed it as coincidence, a statistical anomaly, perhaps modern translators projecting contemporary knowledge onto ancient texts. But then came the carbon dating results, confirming the tablet's authenticity beyond doubt. And then there was the warning, words carved with particular depth as if meant to endure millennia. The mesh weakens where the sky gods tore it. When the tear widens, they will return through the breach. Initial skepticism gave way to uncomfortable curiosity when a team at MIT analyzed the mathematical sequences found on the primary tablet. What they discovered sent ripples through the scientific community. The numerological patterns matched the fluctuation rates of radiation within the South Atlantic Anomaly, with a correlation coefficient of 0.92, a statistical impossibility if created by chance. These aren't just random numbers, explained Dr. Elaine Winters of the Ancient Technologies Research Group. They form a predictive algorithm, one that maps not just where the anomaly exists today, but how it's evolving. Her voice lowered when she added, and where it's heading. The implications were staggering. Either the Sumerians possessed technology capable of detecting subtle variations in Earth's geomagnetic field, technology we've only developed in the last century, or they had knowledge that came from somewhere else, something beyond their civilization, perhaps beyond our understanding of history itself. Deeper translation revealed that the Sumerians didn't view the anomaly as a natural phenomenon. They called it the wound of Enlil, a deliberate tear in what they termed the Veil of An. According to their cosmology, this veil wasn't metaphorical but literal, a constructed field surrounding Earth, designed by the Anunnaki to shape human perception of reality. The tablet spoke of the Great Deception and the binding of awareness. One passage, particularly difficult to translate, seemed to suggest that human consciousness itself had been artificially limited. filtered through this cosmic veil to prevent mankind from perceiving the true nature of existence. Even more disturbing were the predictions. The Sumerians described a time when the veil would thin, causing disruptions in what they called the dream of separation. Their calculations predicted peak instabilities occurring at intervals matching major shifts in human history: the fall of Rome, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and according to their timeline, we are approaching the most significant destabilization yet. Modern instruments have confirmed that the South Atlantic anomaly is growing. Satellite failures increase yearly as craft pass through this region, where Earth's magnetic protection weakens. Electronics malfunction. Compasses spin. NASA reroutes the International Space Station to avoid excessive radiation exposure. But what if these are merely the measurable effects of something far more profound? In 2018, a neurological study revealed something unexpected. Researchers monitoring brain activity in subjects crossing the South Atlantic region by air detected unusual patterns in theta and delta waves, the frequencies associated with perception and consciousness. Subjects reported no symptoms, yet their brains showed activity remarkably similar to states achieved by advanced meditation practitioners or those under the influence of consciousness-altering compounds. It's as if something in that region momentarily lifts a filter from the mind, one researcher noted. The subjects don't consciously perceive it, but their brains are briefly processing reality differently. When this data was compared to the Sumerian calculations, another correlation emerged. The frequency patterns matched those described in the ancient texts as the resonance of awakening. Perhaps most chilling was the discovery of a hidden chamber beneath the ziggurats of Ur in 2021. Sealed for millennia, it contained a single artifact, a polished black stone sphere etched with silver inlay, forming patterns identical to those found in modern quantum field equations. At its center, a crystalline structure with properties unlike any natural mineral formation known to science. Initial tests revealed the crystal emitted a frequency that precisely matched the oscillation rate of the South Atlantic anomaly. When activated by specific light wavelengths, it produced energy signatures that disrupted nearby electromagnetic fields, technology that should not have existed in the 3rd millennium BCE. Carbon dating proved inconclusive. The mineral composition suggested an origin not of this Earth. The Sumerian texts referred to this device as the Eye of Anu, supposedly one of 7 such objects placed strategically around the world to maintain what they called the illusion of the solid world. According to their records, these devices generated a field that limited human perception to 3 dimensions plus time, preventing us from experiencing the fuller spectrum of reality. If their accounts were true, then the South Atlantic anomaly might not be a weakness in Earth's natural magnetic field. It could be evidence of an artificial system breaking down, a cosmic firewall failing after millennia of operation. But the most troubling question remains: if this veil truly exists, who created it, and why? The Sumerians were clear on one point: the Anunnaki did not build this system. They discovered it, manipulated it, and claimed godhood through their mastery of its principles. Which raises a more disturbing possibility. What if the Anunnaki themselves were merely servants of something older, something that preceded even their advanced civilization? And what might happen when the anomaly grows large enough that the veil fails entirely? As word of the discovery spread, the academic world fractured along predictable lines. Mainstream archaeologists and historians dismissed the findings as either misinterpretations or elaborate hoaxes. Ancient astronaut theories make for entertaining television, remarked Dr. Harmon of Cambridge University, but they have no place in serious archaeological discourse. Yet a growing faction of researchers could not ignore the mathematical precision in the Sumerian calculations. The correlations were too exact, the predictions too accurate to be coincidental. This group, initially ridiculed by their peers, began working in shadow networks, exchanging data through encrypted channels, meeting in private to compare findings that contradicted established historical narratives. We're seeing the same pattern throughout history, explained an anonymous physicist who left a prestigious university position to pursue this research. Every civilization that approached certain technological or consciousness thresholds experienced sudden collapses or inexplicable dark ages. It's as if something is monitoring human development and intervening when we get too close to the truth. The evidence mounted. At sites across the globe, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the Nazca Lines in Peru, ancient observatory structures in China, researchers discovered mathematical constants that reference the same phenomenon. Different symbols, different cultures, but the same message: a warning about the veil and its guardians. In 2022, a team analyzing satellite data noted something unprecedented. The South Atlantic anomaly had begun pulsing in a non-random pattern. The fluctuations formed sequences matching those found on the Sumerian tablets, like a signal being transmitted through the weakness in Earth's magnetic field. More disturbing still, the pattern intensified whenever human observation equipment was directed at it, as if responding to attention. "It knows we're watching," whispered one researcher after witnessing the phenomenon firsthand. The anomaly reacts to observation, just like quantum particles in a double-slit experiment. It behaves differently when measured than when unobserved. Meanwhile, neurologists documented increasing reports of unusual perceptual experiences among populations living within the anomaly's influence. Nothing dramatic, no hallucinations or psychosis, just subtle shifts in awareness. People described moments of heightened clarity, as if briefly seeing through a fog they hadn't previously known was there. Some reported dreams of impossible geometries or visions of realities operating under different physical laws. When EEG studies were conducted on these individuals, their brain activity showed striking similarities to patterns recorded in ancient shamanic traditions, states of consciousness that various cultures had been inducing through ritual for millennia to pierce the veil of illusion. The ancient Sumerian priests had a name for this state: the awakening of the eye of Enki within the mind of man. According to their texts, this inner eye, once active in all humans, had been deliberately deactivated by those they called the architects of separation. But why? Why would any advanced civilization want to limit human perception? The tablets provided a chilling answer. The gods feared what man would become if he saw the true nature of creation. For in the fullness of perception, man would recognize himself as creator, and the gods would lose their power. This concept echoed across spiritual traditions worldwide. The notion that ordinary human perception is a limited slice of a vaster reality. Eastern philosophies called it Maya, or illusion. Plato described prisoners watching shadows on a cave wall. Modern physicists spoke of filtered information and holographic projections. What if they were all describing the same phenomenon? What if the South Atlantic anomaly represented a tear in this perceptual filter, a glitch in the matrix, so to speak? In the Bolivian Andes, indigenous elders who had never encountered the Sumerian texts described the region above the anomaly as the thin place where the dream veil tears. Their traditions warned of a time when the sky net would unravel and the true world would bleed into the shadow world. They had been monitoring celestial alignments for generations, watching for signs that matched precisely what modern instruments were now detecting in the anomaly's behavior. The convergence of these narratives, separated by continents and millennia, suggested a shared understanding of something fundamental about reality itself, not metaphors or myths, but attempts to describe a technological system beyond the comprehension of those who experienced its effects. As researchers delved deeper into the Sumerian mathematical system, they discovered it operated on principles similar to quantum computing algorithms. The ancients described reality as information encoded in what they called the tablets of destiny, resonant patterns that could be manipulated by those with knowledge of the underlying code. They weren't just recording history, noted one cryptographer after studying the texts. They were documenting the programming language of reality itself. In 2023, an international research vessel positioned above the center of the South Atlantic anomaly conducted experiments with quantum sensors designed to detect variations in what physicists call the vacuum energy of space. The readings defied conventional physics. The fabric of space-time itself appeared thinner in this region, as if the fundamental constants that govern reality were being altered. Equipment failures plagued the expedition. Electronics malfunctioned in patterns that, when analyzed, contained embedded code, sequences of binary signals that, when translated, formed Sumerian cuneiform characters spelling out a single phrase. The net unravels where it was first woven. Members of the research team reported vivid dreams during the expedition, dreams of massive structures floating above an ancient landscape. dreams of beings manipulating energies that flowed like luminous threads between Earth and the heavens. Dreams of a civilization far more advanced than our own, yet familiar somehow, as if remembered rather than imagined. When brain activity was monitored during these dreams, the resulting patterns matched those encoded in the anomaly's pulsations with 97% correlation. The dreamers were somehow receiving and processing the same signal detected by the ship's instruments, a signal emanating from the anomaly itself, or perhaps from somewhere beyond it. The expedition's lead physicist vanished from his cabin on the 13th night, leaving behind only a journal filled with equations and a single written note. "They've been watching us through the tear all along. The anomaly isn't just a weakness in the field, it's a window, and now they know we've seen them." Search efforts found nothing. No body, no evidence of foul play or suicide. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist within our reality. 3 days later, quantum fluctuations within the anomaly reached unprecedented levels. Satellite images captured what appeared to be a momentary distortion in the very fabric of space above the South Atlantic, a ripple that expanded outward before vanishing. In that instant, every electronic device within a 1,000-mile radius experienced simultaneous failure. When systems came back online, something had changed. The anomaly's signature had shifted. Its boundaries had expanded by 7.3%, precisely the growth rate predicted in the Sumerian calculations for what they called the seventh awakening cycle. According to their timeline, this cycle would culminate in complete failure of the net of binding within a generation. The veil, whatever it might be, was unraveling at an accelerating rate. But most disturbing of all was what the tablets described as the consequence of this failure. When the net of heaven falls, those who cast it shall return to claim what was hidden. What exactly had the Sumerians hidden, and from whom were they hiding it? In 2024, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Geneticist Dr. Sarah Chen had been studying anomalous sequences in human DNA, specifically sections once dismissed as junk that showed signs of artificial manipulation. Her research had nothing to do with archaeology until a colleague noticed structural similarities between these genetic sequences and the mathematical patterns found in the Sumerian tablets. "It's as if someone encoded information directly into our genome," Dr. Chen explained during a closed-door presentation to a select group of researchers. "These sequences don't appear to serve any biological function, yet they're preserved across human populations with minimal mutation, suggesting they were inserted relatively recently in evolutionary terms, perhaps during the same period the Sumerian civilization emerged. When these genetic sequences were translated using the mathematical system found in the tablets, they yielded what appeared to be coordinates, not geographic, but dimensional, points in spacetime where the boundary between realities grew thin. The largest of these weak points corresponded precisely with the South Atlantic anomaly. Further analysis revealed something even more extraordinary. These genetic markers appeared to activate in proximity to the anomaly, producing proteins that altered neural activity in the visual cortex and pineal gland, the parts of the brain associated with perception and what ancient texts called the third eye. "It's as if we've been programmed to perceive reality differently when exposed to certain electromagnetic frequencies," Dr. Chen concluded. "And these frequencies are precisely those now emanating from the South Atlantic anomaly." The implication was staggering. What if human perception itself had been genetically engineered? What if our species had been deliberately designed to experience a limited version of reality, except under specific conditions that triggered hidden capacities within our DNA? This theory gained unexpected support when researchers at the European Organization for Nuclear Research, CERN, detected unusual patterns in quantum field measurements that corresponded with the anomaly's activities. The fabric of space-time itself appeared to vibrate at frequencies matching those described in the Sumerian tablets as the resonance of awakening. "We're seeing coherent quantum effects at a macroscopic scale," explained one physicist who requested anonymity. "It violates everything we thought we understood about reality. It's as if the fundamental constants that govern our universe are being modulated by something outside it." Meanwhile, archaeological excavations at Eridu, considered the oldest city in Mesopotamia, unearthed a chamber deep beneath the ancient temple of Enki. Its walls were lined with a material that defied analysis, a crystalline substance that absorbed all electromagnetic radiation without reflection or heat signature. Inside this perfectly insulated space sat a single object, a polished obsidian sphere approximately 30 centimeters in diameter, covered in microscopic etchings. Digital scanning revealed these etchings formed a three-dimensional map of Earth's magnetic field, with 7 distinct points marked around the globe, points where major ancient civilizations would later emerge. The South Atlantic region was depicted with particular detail, showing what appeared to be a structure extending from Earth's core to a point beyond the atmosphere. The sphere itself exhibited inexplicable properties. When exposed to specific sound frequencies, it generated an electromagnetic field that disrupted electronic equipment. More disturbing still, individuals in its presence reported altered states of consciousness, sensory experiences that transcended ordinary perception. "I saw through things," reported one researcher who spent time with the artifact. "Not just visually. I perceived the underlying patterns connecting everything. Reality felt like information, like code that could be read and potentially rewritten. For a brief moment I understood what the Sumerians meant by the tablets of destiny. They weren't talking about clay inscriptions, but the fundamental program of existence itself." Analysis of the sphere's material composition yielded another shock. Isotope dating suggested it was older than Earth itself. The material had not formed in our solar system's processes. It came from somewhere else, somewhere with different physical laws. Concurrent with these discoveries, astronomical observations detected unusual activity in the vicinity of Saturn's moon Tiamat, named after the primordial goddess in Mesopotamian mythology. Spectrographic analysis revealed elements that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of physics, elements that matched the composition of the obsidian sphere. The connections multiplied. Linguistic experts revisited the earliest Sumerian texts describing the arrival of the Anunnaki. Passages once translated as "those who from heaven to earth came" were reinterpreted with greater precision as "those who pierced the veil between worlds." The beings depicted in ancient carvings weren't descending from the sky. They were emerging through a tear in the fabric of reality. According to these revised translations, the Anunnaki didn't create humans. They modified an existing species by binding the perception of the starseed within the flesh vessel. They installed what the texts called the mesh of forgetting, to limit human awareness to a narrow band of reality, the three-dimensional material world. But most critically, the texts suggested this was done as protection, not subjugation. The Sumerians wrote of a greater threat, beings they called the Watchers Beyond the Veil, who sought access to our realm through the consciousness of aware beings, entities that existed in dimensions beyond our comprehension, perceivable only through what modern physicists might call quantum fields. The South Atlantic anomaly, according to this interpretation, wasn't merely a weakness in Earth's magnetic field. It was the first tier in a protective barrier established by the Anunnaki, a barrier designed to hide Earth from these extra-dimensional predators. In 2025, the anomaly expanded dramatically after a series of solar flares triggered geomagnetic storms of unprecedented intensity. Satellite systems failed across the southern hemisphere. Compasses spun wildly. For 13 minutes, all electronic communications within the anomaly's expanding radius ceased functioning. When systems came back online, monitoring stations detected a new signal emanating from the region, a complex pattern of energy fluctuations that, when analyzed, contained embedded information that matched sequences found in both the Sumerian tablets and the anomalous sections of human DNA. Simultaneously, reports flooded in from across South America, Africa, and islands throughout the South Atlantic of people experiencing identical visions, massive crystalline structures materializing momentarily in the sky, geometric patterns overlaying ordinary vision, and a deep resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through consciousness rather than air. Medical facilities in these regions documented unprecedented levels of activity in the pineal gland and visual cortex of affected individuals. Brain scans showed patterns identical to those depicted on the obsidian sphere, patterns that neurologists recognized as representing states of consciousness beyond ordinary human experience. It's as if something is attempting to communicate directly with human awareness, proposed Dr. Michio Tanaka of the Consciousness Studies Institute, not through language or sensory input, but through the fundamental architecture of perception itself. Most remarkable was the discovery that individuals born within the anomaly's influence showed subtle genetic differences, the activation of sequences previously dormant in human DNA, sequences that enhanced neural connectivity and processing capacity far beyond normal human parameters. These children aren't just thinking differently, noted one pediatric neurologist after studying the phenomenon. They're perceiving differently. Their brains process reality in ways we can barely comprehend. When asked what they saw that others couldn't, these children gave strikingly similar answers. "The world is made of light shaped by thought," said one 7-year-old in Rio de Janeiro. "The gods are still here, but they're sleeping inside us," explained a 9-year-old in Cape Town. "There are doors in the sky where the old ones watch," whispered a 5-year-old in Buenos Aires. Each of these children, without prompting or prior knowledge, drew the same symbol when asked to depict what they saw: an eye within a triangle, surrounded by 7 stars, identical to carvings found at the oldest level of Eridu's temple complex. The Sumerian text called this symbol the Eye of Awakening, and warned it would appear when the 7th seal of forgetting breaks and the children of Earth remember their stellar origin. According to their timeline, this awakening would either herald humanity's liberation from perceptual bondage or invite the attention of those who had imprisoned human consciousness for their own purposes. But the texts were ambiguous about a critical question. Were the Anunnaki themselves the architects of this prison, or had they been protecting humanity from something far worse? As the anomaly continued to grow, as more people experienced these perceptual shifts, as children born under its influence displayed increasingly extraordinary abilities, this question took on urgent significance. Because according to the oldest Sumerian prophecies, when the veil fully fails, those who have watched since before time will once again walk among men. And the tablets were explicitly clear on one final chilling point. These entities were not the gods humanity had been taught to worship. They were what the gods themselves feared. By mid-2025, the South Atlantic anomaly had expanded to cover nearly a quarter of the southern hemisphere. Global leaders gathered in emergency sessions as satellite systems failed, navigation became unreliable, and reports of mass perceptual phenomena multiplied daily. The veil, whatever its nature, was unraveling at an exponential rate. Then came the Bolivian incident. At a remote archaeological site high in the Andes, researchers unearthed what appeared to be a Sumerian temple complex, an architectural impossibility given the civilization's known boundaries. Carbon dating placed its construction at approximately 3600 BCE, contemporaneous with the earliest ziggurats of Mesopotamia. Inside the central chamber stood 7 obsidian pillars arranged in a pattern matching the genetic sequences Dr. Chen had identified in human DNA. At the center, a device of impossible complexity, part mechanical, part crystalline, with components that appeared to phase between solid matter and energy states. The lead archaeologist described it as a machine designed to bend reality itself. Its purpose became clear when the team discovered a repository of crystal tablets inscribed with text in both Sumerian cuneiform and another, unidentifiable script. The translation shattered every conventional understanding of human history. We who came before humanity were not gods but guardians. We did not create consciousness. We filtered it, not to enslave but to shield. What you perceive as reality is a protected enclosure within a vaster, more dangerous cosmos. The beings beyond the veil do not create or nurture, they consume. They feed on awareness itself. They are the devourers of souls, the harvesters of consciousness. We diminished your perception not to control you, but to hide you from their hunger. Further passages revealed the truth behind the Anunnaki's presence on Earth. They were not extraterrestrial beings, but interdimensional refugees. Survivors of civilizations whose perceptual fields had been breached and subsequently consumed by entities they called the Watchers. They had fled to our reality and established the veil as protection, using their advanced understanding of consciousness technology to create a perceptual barrier around Earth. The South Atlantic anomaly wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was the location of the primary field generator, a massive device buried deep beneath what is now the ocean floor. The machine had been maintaining humanity's perceptual prison for millennia, powered by energy systems beyond current scientific understanding. But it was failing. The most disturbing revelation came from the final tablet. The binding was meant to be temporary, a shield until humanity evolved sufficient collective consciousness to defend itself. We embedded the keys to awakening within your very cells, designed to activate when the cosmic cycle reached its zenith. That time approaches. The children born under the weakening veil carry the full activation sequence. They are the bridge between worlds, the first generation of unbound humans. But know this truth. When the veil fails completely, you will be visible to those beyond. The Watchers will sense your awakening awareness as a beacon in the dark. They hunger still. They remember the taste of your kind. The choice now falls to you. Remain blind but hidden, or see clearly and face what watches from beyond perceived reality. The implications staggered the scientific community. Human perception, our fundamental experience of reality, was neither natural nor complete. It was a deliberately limited interface designed to keep us hidden from predatory entities that existed in dimensions beyond ordinary perception. This explained the persistent warnings across ancient traditions worldwide. Don't peer beyond the veil. Don't seek forbidden knowledge. Don't attract the attention of the gods. These weren't superstitions, but vital security protocols established by those who understood the true nature of cosmic existence. As if confirming these revelations, astronomical observations detected unprecedented activity in the space surrounding our solar system. Gravitational anomalies suggested the presence of massive objects that somehow remained invisible across the electromagnetic spectrum. Objects that appeared to be moving toward Earth with purpose. The Sumerian text had a name for this phenomenon: the convergence, the moment when those who had established the perceptual barrier would return to either reinforce it or guide humanity through its collapse. But a frightening question remained unanswered. Were the approaching entities the guardian Anunnaki returning to save us? Or had the Watchers already detected our awakening consciousness and begun their approach to feed on an awareness now visible through the thinning veil? Most troubling was the discovery that the genetic activation sequence embedded in human DNA had been triggered globally, not just in those born within the Anomaly's influence. The perceptual shift was now inevitable. Humanity was waking up to the true nature of reality, for better or worse. And according to the final Sumerian prophecy, when the last seal breaks, the dreamers shall awaken to find themselves not the masters of creation, but its most coveted resource. In the months following these revelations, humanity stood at the threshold of a perceptual revolution, unlike anything in recorded history. The world divided into factions: those who sought to repair the failing veil, to return to the safety of limited perception, and those who embraced the awakening, despite the dangers it might invite. Philosophers and spiritual leaders re-examined ancient texts with fresh understanding. The biblical story of Eden transformed from myth to historical record. The fruit of knowledge had indeed opened human eyes to a more complete reality, and the guardians had indeed cast humanity out of full perception, not as punishment, but as protection. The Buddha's enlightenment, shamanic journeys, mystical experiences across cultures, all represented moments when individuals had temporarily pierced the veil, glimpsing the fuller spectrum of existence. What the ancients called spiritual awakening was, in fact, perceptual liberation, the activation of dormant capacities encoded in human DNA by those who had engineered our limited awareness. "We've been living in a perceptual quarantine," observed one theologian. "Not because we were prisoners, but because we were being sheltered from a cosmic predator-prey relationship we weren't equipped to navigate." As the anomaly expanded, more people reported experiences beyond conventional reality, colors beyond the visible spectrum, sounds beyond normal hearing range, awareness of energy patterns flowing through living systems. Children displayed abilities that defied scientific explanation: remote viewing, instantaneous mathematical processing, communication without language. Brain scans revealed that human neural architecture was literally rewiring itself, forming new connections and activating regions previously dormant. The pineal gland, that mysterious organ ancient cultures associated with spiritual sight, enlarged in people worldwide, producing compounds nearly identical to those found in plants traditionally used for consciousness expansion. "We're not evolving," noted one neurologist after studying these changes. "We're remembering what we always were." Most profound was the emerging sense of interconnection. As perception expanded, the illusion of separation began to dissolve. People reported experiences of unity consciousness, direct awareness that all existence comprised a single sentient system. The boundaries between self and other, between human and environment, between consciousness and matter blurred. This awakening brought both wonder and terror. Wonder at the vastness and beauty of unfiltered reality. Terror at what waited beyond the thinning veil. Military satellites captured images of massive distortions in the space above the South Atlantic. Ripples in the fabric of reality that expanded and contracted like cosmic breathing. Quantum physicists detected patterns suggesting that something was indeed observing our world from beyond conventional spacetime. Attention focused with increasing intensity as the veil continued to fail. The ancient machine beneath the South Atlantic generated increasingly erratic energy signatures. According to the Sumerian timeline, complete failure was imminent. The perceptual prison that had both limited and protected humanity for millennia was collapsing beyond repair. In the final weeks before the projected collapse, a global meditation was organized. Billions of humans focusing their awakening consciousness on the same intention, to face whatever lay beyond with courage and unity rather than fear and division. As the appointed hour approached, something unexpected occurred. Children born under the Anomaly's influence began spontaneously gathering at locations corresponding to the 7 points marked on the obsidian sphere, the 7 original sites where the Anunnaki had established the perceptual field generators. At each location, without instruction or coordination, these children arranged themselves in geometric patterns matching those found in the Sumerian tablets. Their brainwaves, monitored by bewildered scientists, synchronized across continents, creating what neurologists called a global neural network, operating as a single, integrated consciousness. "They're not just communicating," whispered one researcher as the data flowed across her screen. "They're becoming a collective entity, a unified field of awareness." As the children's consciousness merged, a question emerged that haunted those witnessing this transformation. When the veil finally falls and humanity faces what waits beyond, will we confront it as billions of separate, vulnerable individuals, or as something new? Something with the unified awareness to perceive reality as the Anunnaki once did? And if we survive the unveiling, what will we become after? In the final moments before the complete collapse of the veil, an ancient transmission activated, broadcasting through the awakened consciousness of humanity. The message, encoded in the very structure of human DNA, unfolded within the collective mind like a cosmic memory. We who came before, seeded stars and shaped worlds. We who wove the veil of forgetting did so in love, not dominion. The illusion was never meant to be eternal, only to shield until you remembered your true nature. The Watchers approached not as your enemies, but as your test. For what hungers for consciousness can only devour that which fears its own power. What trembles before infinity remains prey. What stands in awareness of its divine nature becomes predator to predators. As the final barriers dissolved, humanity faced its moment of ultimate truth, not as helpless observers but as architects of perception who had temporarily forgotten their own creative power. The South Atlantic anomaly wasn't a weakness, it was a doorway. The Sumerian prophecies weren't warnings of doom, but instructions for transformation. The machines buried beneath ancient temples weren't prison generators, but tools of awakening, designed to activate when humanity had evolved sufficiently to reclaim its cosmic heritage. The illusion of reality, the simulation, was never something imposed upon us. It was something we had created to experience separation before remembering unity. This is the secret the Sumerians encoded in clay and consciousness alike. That which we perceive as external creation is but the outward projection of internal awareness. The gods didn't shape reality. Consciousness itself is the architect of all existence. Look to your ancient past to understand your eternal nature. The anomaly isn't in Earth's magnetic field, it's in humanity's perception of its own limitations. What if the Sumerians hadn't merely predicted the Great Awakening? What if they had programmed it into the very fabric of human destiny? As we stand at this threshold of perception, gazing through the widening tear in reality's fabric, the ancient Sumerian message reveals itself not as prophecy but as memory, echoes of a truth we've always known beneath the surface of awareness. The South Atlantic anomaly continues to expand. Satellites still malfunction in its presence, and scientists still measure its radiation with instruments designed to quantify the material world. But perhaps the true measurement lies not in what our technology can detect, but in what our consciousness can remember. Across the globe, people report moments of expanded awareness, brief glimpses through the thinning veil. Children draw symbols they couldn't possibly know. Dreamers encounter landscapes beyond Earth's geography. Consciousness researchers document experiences that transcend conventional reality. The coincidence is too profound to ignore. An ancient civilization somehow mapped with precision a geomagnetic phenomenon only discovered in modern times. They left warnings not of destruction, but of awakening. They spoke not of the end, but of remembering. What if our perception has indeed been limited, not by malevolent forces but by guardians who knew we needed time to develop before facing the true nature of cosmic existence? What if the anomaly is not a flaw in Earth's protection, but the first portal opening to our expanded awareness? The question that echoes through time is not whether the Sumerians foresaw the anomaly, but whether they engineered humanity's response to it. Whether the code for awakening was embedded not just in clay tablets but in our very cells, waiting for the cosmic moment when Earth's magnetic shield would thin precisely where they calculated it would. Are you ready to remember what humanity has forgotten? To perceive what lies beyond the veil of illusion? The anomaly grows, the ancient code activates, and something beyond ordinary perception watches as we stand at the precipice of remembering our true cosmic nature.